Hello, adventurer. It's good to see you. You have made it to the morning grind.
Welcome, welcome.
It's the live stream at the beginning of the Geekverse, where we talk about all types of topics in geekdom, gaming, and fantasy, with an emphasis on being constructive and creating the things that we want to exist in the world.
It's all on the grind, Sizemore. Can't be too fine, can't be too coarse.
That's exactly right. There are a lot of adventures to be had today. Dungeons to explore and monsters to slay, and who knows what a random encounter might send our way. That's why we have to prepare, so settle in now for the morning grind with your favorite beverage in hand.
Tea? Or maybe something a little stronger. I've got a few bottles of the old Wynyard left.
Whatever you want. Pull up a chair.
Dude.
If you're feeling fancy, how about a cappuccino? Or a frappuccino? Or how about an espresso?
Just tea, thank you.
Sounds good to me, Gandalf. Whatever you want. I'm just glad you're here.
Everyone is welcome. You can just watch if you want. You don't have to worship anything you don't want to worship.
Thank you, Mike. But be forewarned.
Sometimes we get really strange characters around here.
Wait, what's that you say? Why can't you come and be a part of the stream?
My wife would disown me.
Oh no, I bet she'll be fine with it. Come on in.
Am I scared for my safety? No.
What are we supposed to do?
Everybody do the secret handshake.
Secret cultist handshake.
Oh, now do wizards who love each other.
This, my friend, is a science.
I still don't have gifts, but it's fine.
It's all on the grind, son. Can't be too fine, can't be too coarse.
Dude, this would be a sick place to bring the band.
Indeed it would be, Dave. It really would. I'm seeing more people coming in. Welcome, glad to have you here. Oh look, here's someone new.
Is this the cultist meetup?
Yes it is.
Come to hang out? Please accept me. I have nothing else.
Okay, we accept you. Everyone's welcome here.
Brought some snacks.
Well, that makes things even better.
You want some coffee? I don't drink coffee. You sure?
It's cultist coffee.
What makes it cultist coffee? I'm a cultist and I'm drinking it. Oh. Then I'll have some.
What exactly is going on here?
I'm seeing more people coming in. Welcome. It's so great to have you. Oh, and look, here comes another stranger.
Can we help you?
Yes, fellow cultists. I could really use some food.
Oh yeah? Welcome. We have donuts.
Oh, it's me. I'm glad I'm here. I'm sure you have a few questions for me, though.
What's your name? Who do you work for? What god do you worship?
Great questions, Rob.
I'm Steve King, and I worship Nyarlathotep.
No, not really. I'm just Heath, and I won't be worshiping anything this morning. But I will be your host. Welcome to the office. We're going to have a great time. I've got my coffee ready, because now it's time for the morning grind.
If you could become a fish, that would be amazing. Then I could command you with my mental fish powers.
Good morning, everyone. It is so good to have you here in the office this morning for the morning grind. How are things going? I've been up writing this morning, although it just got some great ideas from yesterday, but still having difficulty plowing on. So don't know, but I was up, I was working, so hope you were too. Who all is here with us? Good morning, Stargate Mind. Good to see you. Mike Hansford is here, one of our channel members. Thank you so much, Mike. James is here, another channel member, and Zero the Blade. Welcome. Good to see you. Rutabaga is here, and he says, I dig Savage Worlds Deadlands, Weird West game, great setting. Yes, so I've never looked at that one, because we've been talking about it, because today we're going to keep looking at Pathfinder Savage Worlds. I've been thinking about it quite a bit since yesterday, since we started getting into it, and once again, I can see why people had recommended Savage Worlds to me, and I went through the original Savage Worlds book. In fact, I think on the Morning Grind. Actually, that's a Morning Grind episode where we looked at the original Savage World core rules. But now, looking at specifically the Pathfinder one, and it's kind of like sticking with me better. I'm kind of getting it a bit better here. Good morning, Chase and Joe Russell, and even Sable Phoenix is here this morning. Good morning, everybody. All right, do you have your favorite beverage with you? I've got mine in Cultist Coffee this morning, in the Cultist Coffee mug. So let's go ahead and breathe and sip, and then we will go right on. So 2 deep breaths, deep inhale, complete exhale, and then take a sip of your favorite beverage. Much better, much better. And hey, remember, these are available over on ravenkeep.net. We've got both the Cultist Coffee and Witch's Brew. Both of them are takeoffs of the Starbucks logo. And if you're a channel member, then you can go check out the community tab. I put a checkout code, a discount code in the community tab for all the channel members, so you can take this month's membership off the cost of one of our mugs. So if you would like to do that, please check that out. Please put that in this month. I will be happy to ship it right out to you. Joe Russell says, but I'm not a mental fish. In response to Sable Phoenix, I command you with my mental fish powers. Good morning, Zero Theory. Good morning, everybody. All right, let's go ahead and get into this. Oh, don't forget that tonight I already put the channel link up. It's on YouTube now. So we have a screenshot of it. This evening, 7:30, Doug Burton and I are going to be talking about John Wick. So we've got a specific analysis about, I think, how it relates to Beauty and the Beast, which that's kind of like in Doug's wheelhouse. So it was like, we got to cover it. So we're going to be talking about that tonight. I noticed that somebody had already had a problem with it in the comments on that stream already. Somebody was saying that, he said, was saying, no, just no, will not watch. I saw your pathetic attempt at analyzing Pan's Labyrinth, and there's no way I'm going to watch this, or something like that. So somebody was already unhappy with the story analysis. But anyway, that's going to take place tonight at 7:30, and I hope to see everybody there. It's going to be a great time. Let's see. That looks pretty good. All right, so let's continue to take a look at Pathfinder over here, because there's more I want to look at. Last time, I should have used the ribbons to track where we were. But really, we had just gone through combat, and we were taking a look. We had gone through the Adventurer's Toolkit. Let's see. Go to my table of contents here. So, okay, rules. So we were probably on 129. Which, yeah, situational rules, because we had just looked at healing and that kind of thing. So, like, I don't know what type of situational rules there are. What do we need? What do we need to look at? So we went straight there. The Adventurer's Toolkit, that might be a good one to look at. Powers, how are they handling powers and stuff? And then we found out yesterday that this is not class-based. You might even expect that it would have been class-based because it's an adaptation of Pathfinder, but it's not. So then we could probably, once we understand how to play a bit more, then we can take a look at character creation. But okay, let's go to situational rules and see what they are at least, and then go to the Adventurer Toolkit. So let's see here. There. I was also thinking about, I believe it was Nate. Nate Jones was in the comments yesterday, and he was talking about trying to clean this up. And you're talking about Deadlands. We're talking about Rutabaga was talking about Deadlands. So it seems that the core rules for Savage Worlds use card-based and poker-based analogies, which seem to fit very well for the Wild West kind of thing, even calling the player characters wild cards. And all that terminology has come over into all the different types of the different setting-specific rules, which can, if you're not familiar with Savage Worlds rules, which I really was not, I remember that being in the core rules, but that wasn't adapted. It does come up with some awkward phraseology, but I understand what it's trying to do, and I appreciate what it's trying to do. And certainly, Sable Phoenix has had a lot of fun playing with it. So I don't know. I want to try it out. It might be something that when I was one of the reasons that I was doing this was like, I need to create an RPG. It's the perfect RPG already out there to play in the worlds that I'm creating. And Savage Worlds is a question. I mean, it could be Savage Worlds. I want to look more at or consider more of Fate, Savage Worlds, and then the Cortex system. We looked at the Cortex system. That was a big book, but we just did 1 hour on the Cortex system, trying to figure out what was in the Cortex system. I had done other videos on the Dragon Prince RPG, which was built on Cortex. So Cortex, it's got some great stuff in it too. It seems like those are all kinds of things that are in the same kind of philosophy in some ways. So what are we talking about here with situational rules? We're talking about rules for aiming, area effect attacks, and we did have templates in the back. Because this game assumes that you're using miniatures, but it says templates without using miniatures. Use the measurements below when you need to figure out how many enemies a template might affect and you aren't using miniatures. The target's affected column shows the GM how many enemies are hit in a narrative situations, modifying the results of the targets are spread out like trained assassins, or bunched up like mindless zombies. So using the small, medium, large cone stream template, its diameter and number of targets potentially affected. Bound and entangled. Breaking things. Okay, called shots. We do have called shots here. So let's take a look at that, because that's actually something I was considering when we went to our injuries, because I was saying that I want the combat to be fast and I want the combat to be significant when people get hit, because whether or not like you're hit in the arm or you're hit in the leg or something like that can be narratively important and impact the gameplay. And this does have injuries. But as Sable Phoenix was saying, that it's actually kind of difficult to get to injuries because you have to go through all of your wounds and then fall out. And then you potentially get an injury when you step up. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's permanent. Yep, Zero Theory, that's very important too. Because we talked about that yesterday. We talked about how this is not an open license game. That you can get it, but you have to talk to them. And one of the things that they're very strict about is that you have to... they have to basically approve your layout. They want to make sure that your art design and layout and stuff like that is of high quality. And a friend of mine, so it's completely possible to do. Lou, for instance, I was talking about. He's been adapting his Thrones and Bones stuff to Thrones and Bones material, campaign material, to Savage Worlds. And he's been approved for Savage Worlds licensing. But like I said, that didn't surprise me because he was an art director for a fantasy publishing house. And of course, he's been able to put together fantastic layouts and great looking books for Thrones and Bones. So it's not completely open. But on the other hand, it's probably not, it's not impossible to get either. Exactly right. Once you know, that's what we said, that once you know, Joe says that keeping all the terminology allows you to pick up any Savage World setting without having to learn setting-specific nomenclature. That's right. And we did say that, so potentially what I would have done, that's why, but it seems like years ago, what might have happened is you would say, okay, wait a minute, let's use setting independent language instead of Wild West language. Let's start that. And then that way, all of our books will have setting neutral language for the rule systems. But that didn't happen. So now we have that particular flavor in the rule system. And now it's probably too late to change, that you want to have that in there. Genesis, now I have heard of that. Genesis, and we have not looked at the Genesis system here. Not yet. So that could be on the list. Okay, so called shots. Targeting a particular part of the body is a called shot. The modifier to the attack roll depends on the scale of the target itself, not the creature it's part of. Use the scale modifiers on page 138 to determine any bonus or penalty of the target scale. These modifiers are already listed in parentheses below normal scale creatures, along with any specific game effects. So you can target the hand We've got target hand. Target may be disarmed at -4. Head or vitals, -4. Hitting the head or vital organs of a living creature adds +4 damage to the attacker's total. The penalty is -5 if attempting to target the face of someone wearing an open-faced helmet and thus bypassing the helmet's armor. And we do need to figure out how armor works in here, because we know we're trying to get over a toughness value, which I also kind of like. There's a lot in here, like I said, that I'm liking. I'm assuming the armor is going to modify a toughness value, because I've thought about that a lot as well, because some of your stats as a resistance, how do you keep something from happening to you? Well, I mean, you could try to dodge out of the way, but something like toughness keeps physical damage from happening to you when it strikes you. And you could augment your toughness with armor. That seems like a very natural thing to do. So that may be what we're going here. Item, use the dimensions on the scale item type table for items. Targeting something the size of a dagger, for instance, is -4. Limbs, unless attempting to disarm, see below. Hitting a limb has no additional special effect, since it's already accounted for by wounds and pace penalties. See wounds, page 125. Unarmored area. The attack strikes the unarmored area of a target otherwise covered in armor. The penalty depends on the scale of the area. The eye slits of a helmet is tiny, for instance, when the flesh beneath the missing scale of a huge dragon might be very small. Chases, we're going to have to take a look specifically at the chase rules, because like I said, I know they're proud of them. So, okay, yeah. Sable Phoenix says armor adds toughness and can also reduce damage taken. The Genesis system uses the same dice as Edge Star Wars. Oh, wait a minute. Is the Genesis system, is that what Fantasy... Wait, hold on. Was that what Fantasy Flight called its system? Okay, yes, that's the Fantasy Flight one. Are they still producing that? Well, I guess you can get it in PDF. But it says Genesis is a role-playing system designed for flexibility and adaptability, specifically tooled to work with any setting and manageable. Because I thought that Fantasy Flight had largely gotten out of the RPG stuff. Yes. Okay. So they've got all the custom dice in there. So we did open up and take a look at one of the Star Wars boxes. I forget which one it was, but I got this intro to Star Wars boxes. And so, yes. So we did look at that. Fantasy Flight sold to Edge Studios. So they are still producing. Okay. Thank you so much for letting us know. Okay. So that is our situation there. So we have looked at that. We got the custom dice over there. I haven't ever looked at it specifically, like in the general sense, though. There was a lot to it. So cover and obstacles, melee and ranged attacks suffer a penalty when attempting to hit a target behind cover. Penalties only apply to the targeted area. A skeleton standing behind a knee-high wall doesn't get light cover, but he does if a quarter of his body is protected by a door frame. Penalties only apply to the targeted area. A skeleton standing behind a knee-high wall doesn't get light cover. Okay, so penalties -2. A quarter of the target is obscured. Half the target is obscured. 3/4 of the target is obscured. Near total cover, the target is completely hidden or barely visible. Obstacles defend. A character can choose to focus all her energy and skill onto defense against melee attacks with the defend maneuver. This increases her parry by 4 and takes an entire turn. She cannot perform multi-actions. She may move normally, but not run. Yeah, we have to calculate parry, right? Free actions, movement. The target number to hit the opponent is equal to his parry. And so your parry, remember, is 2 plus half his fighting die type. 2 if he has no fighting skill. So that's adding 4 to that. Also, desperate attack, which is the alternate. the attacking alternative to defending. Determined to land a blow, the warrior unleashes a frantic attack, focuses on hitting his target at the expense of damage. He adds 2 or +4 to any fighting roll and subtracts a like amount from damage if he hits. This can be determined per attack. Oh, so that's not actually decreasing your defense, but it is potentially decreasing your damage. Disarming, distracted and vulnerable. Distracted and vulnerable. The drop, evasion, fatigue, recovery. Let's see, fatigue. Some hazards, stress, powers, or circumstances may cause fatigue instead of damage. This represents mental stress or minor, but lingering injuries that that makes a person less effective. Fatigue stacks until a victim is incapacitated. So fatigued, the victim subtracts 1 from all trait rolls. If he takes another level of fatigue, he's exhausted. Exhausted, you subtract 2 from all trait rolls. If he takes another level of fatigue, he's incapacitated. Recovery. Unless otherwise specified by the source, fatigue and exhaustion improve 1 level per hour. Characters incapacitated from fatigue are helpless and may be unconscious. Oh, finishing move. Finish him. That sounds like I was reading about or watching stuff on Mortal Kombat when we're talking about the violence in on TV. Going back and watching some of those old reports on that. So finishing move, a completely helpless victim may be dispatched with a lethal weapon of some sort as an action. This is automatic unless the GM decides there's a special situation, such as a particularly tough or naturally armored victim, a chance for escape, and so on. The killer must usually dispatch his foe up close and personal, but the GM may occasionally let finishing maneuvers be performed at range if the situation warrants. Firing into melee. Occasionally, heroes have to fire into the middle of hand-to-hand combat. The trouble is that even though we might see figures standing perfectly still on the tabletop, in reality, they're circling each other, wrestling back and forth, and moving erratically. For that reason, firing into a tangle of people, such as melee, is quite dangerous. Use the innocent bystander rule when this occurs. See page 135. Free attacks, ganging up. Ganging up allows attackers to flank, exploit openings, and generally harass a foe. Each additional adjacent ally who isn't surprised adds +1 to the attacker's fighting rolls up to a maximum of +4. Therefore, if 3 goblins are fighting a single hero, for example, each of the 3 goblins adds +2 to their fighting rolls. Grappling, hold, illumination. Oh, well, darkness has become quite a theme here across lots of new RPGs. So what are we saying here for darkness? Darkness conceals details and makes it more difficult to detect objects and targets. Subtract the illumination penalties, see the illumination penalties box down here, from the active trait roll by the illuminations, such as attacks, arcane skills, and notice rolls. It's up to the GM, the game master, exactly what trait rolls are affected, but there are a few examples of rolls that should not be penalized. Resistance rolls, resist grappling attempts, recovering from negative states, verbal support rolls, verbal tests, makes sense. A friendly, cooperative, adjacent character in pitch darkness where touch and communication overcome lack of sight. And we have dim light, dark, and pitch darkness. Dark is typical night conditions. Pitch darkness is complete and total darkness. And dim is twilight, light fog, night with a full moon. Here's our innocent bystander rule. When an attacker misses a shooting or athletics throwing roll, it may sometimes be important to see if other targets are in the line of sight when hit. The GM should only use this rule when it's dramatically appropriate, not for every missed shot in a hail of arrows. Each skill die hits a random victim adjacent to or directly in the line of fire to the original target. A wild card must miss with this wild die for a rate of fire 1 weapon to hit an innocent bystander. Wild dice never hit innocent bystanders. Wait, let me say it again. A wild card must miss with his wild die for a rate of fire 1 weapon to hit an innocent bystander. A wild dice never hits innocent bystanders. Okay, so I guess that's saying that's not so that you're not increasing your chance of hitting somebody else because you're rolling 2 dice. So that's always a problem when you're trying to when you try to increase the number of dice that somebody like a PC is rolling, because that also potentially increases the problem with something going wrong. So that's why it says, I suppose, each skill die that's a 1 hits a random victim adjacent to or in the line of fire, so long as the wild card also misses. Because if the wild card hit, then you would hit. Neutromancer says, is this Savage Worlds with Pathfinder rules or Pathfinder with Savage World rules? Late to the stream. This is Pathfinder with Savage World rules. It's an official deal, too. I'm not exactly sure what. I mean, it's great, I suppose, from their perspective, of course, to get Pathfinder out in other rule sets, this particular world. But I wonder what the motivation here is. I mean, like with the smaller publishers, like with Lou, it seems to be, especially in the aftermath of the OGL debacle, to try to diversify the different rule sets that you accommodate, especially if you're kind of world or campaign focused. But this is a larger publisher who is doing this. Okay, mounted combat. Characters fighting from horseback or other beasts have certain advantages and disadvantages in combat. See below. Horsemanship. Characters who wish to fight from horseback must use the lowest of their fighting or riding skills. This also applies to other more extraordinary mounts. I like that. If you're trying to fight from horseback, use the lowest die value that you've got between horseback and riding. Neutral Master says, neat. I have to run Dark Sun for Fate in a few hours. Oh, I bet that would be fun. So is they the people who are running? Who publishes this? Pern or something like that? Oh, Pinnacle. Yeah, okay. So was it that Pinnacle wanted a campaign setting, and so they went and got Pathfinder? That could make sense. To make it their official fantasy book. That would also explain, if that's the case, that would also explain why it's formatted in the same size and everything like that the original Savage World book is. Wounded mounts. When an animal is shaken or wounded, it rears or bucks. Or a rider must make a riding roll to stay mounted, or it falls as above. Charging on horseback. A rider on a charging mount adds +4 to his damage roll with a successful fighting attack. To be considered charging, the rider must have moved at least 10 yards or more in a relative straight line toward his foe. A weapon with a reach of 1 or greater can be set against a cavalry attack. To do so, the attacker must be on hold and win an opposed athletics roll to interrupt as usual. Whoever has the most reach adds +2 to his roll. Non-lethal damage. Okay, so a character who wants to beat someone up without killing them can choose non-lethal damage. This requires the attacker to use only his fists or a blunt weapon of some sort. Edged weapons may be used if they have a flat side, but this subtracts -1 from the attacker's fighting rolls. Non-lethal damages causes wounds as usual, but a character who is rendered incapacitated cannot be bleeding out. Okay. We were talking about rifts yesterday. Well, I see. Zero Theory says, is Pathfinder a campaign setting, though? I think of it more like D&D fantasy rule set to apply to a campaign world. Yes, but there is... it's that, but there is an official campaign setting when you're reading the Pathfinder, because we were looking at that, and we didn't actually get into that in too great detail when we were going through Pathfinder, but it's called Galorian. And so a section of the Pathfinder rulebook is about Galorian. And so that's what this said in here. So this right here, getting started. The inner sea region. See, this is describing, the world of Galorian. Just over a century ago, a cataclysmic event shook the world of Galorian. The god of humanity died. And then this is all about, and here's the inner sea region here. So this is the Pathfinder setting that you're supposed to be gaming in here. Rutabaga says, never tried Fate. Creating a Narcos Mexico type game. Haven't decided on Genesis or Savage Worlds. When I've talked about Fate, people know that I've talked about Fate and I like it, but it doesn't quite work for me. I've got a friend, Lou. It's Lou. Maybe one day if we get to do the tabletop live streaming game, Lou will run a Fate game for us because he's really good at it. He completely understands how to run that game. But I found that it doesn't quite do what I want to do. I understand where it's going. That's why Fate, Savage Worlds, Cortex, those are kind of in the same family to me. But then, oddly enough, I think about it in the terms of along with Fate, with GURPS quite a bit too. Hey, Draco. My favorite Galorian map is one with a lot of joke country names. Oh, really? See, some people love it, and other people... We talked about that, too, yesterday. So some people love their setting, and other people don't. Yeah, looking into the actual world setting of Pathfinder in depth is diving into a rabbit hole you may never come out of. Chase is definitely pro-Galorian. There's a reason that many think Pathfinder is vastly superior to D&D from a setting perspective. Like Vampire... Oh... that's Neutromancer. Fate feels squishy to me. The dice almost don't matter when you look at the bell curve and how much you can just narrate change with Fate points or narration. It is very squishy. It needs something harder. And the I think to do what I'm trying to do, it needed more crunch. I really appreciate what it's trying to do. And I didn't get it when I first read through. I was like, all right, let's try Fate. So I forget who recommended Fate. It was probably Lou. And I was reading it and I didn't get it. This was years ago. Then he ran it for me and I was like, oh, okay, I get it. I get what it's trying to do. And I'm really in favor of it, but it doesn't quite work, I don't think. Yeah, some generic systems are best with specific genres, Rutabaga says. So push, readying weapons, reloading. So this is still in special situations. Rest, size and scale. Characters and creatures have a size ranging from -4 to very small beings up to size 20. I do like this as far as learning how to play Savage Worlds, because I like I said, when I read Savage Worlds originally, it didn't really stick with me. But this is the generic Savage Worlds rule system then. So it talks about, I like that picture, making races. I like having, it's kind of sticking with me better now that this is actually applied to something, which generally isn't the case. Like I can read like a GURPS and it's generic and don't really have a problem with it. But I think I'm definitely understanding more about what Savage World is trying to do now that I'm reading it in the context of fantasy. Surprise, support versus test, dungeoneering. Okay, so support allows you to help allies. Success, sometimes characters may want to cooperate to help an ally with a task. If so, the GM decides if it's possible. Supporting characters roll the relevant skill, and declare which of their allies' skill they're attempting to support. Success grants the ally +1 to 1 skill total for the round and raises +2. A critical failure on the support roll subtracts 2 from the lead's total. Sometimes extra hands just get in the way. But then test, the support option can be used against an opponent narratively, but the only effect it has is detailed as above. The character, if a character wants to trip up an ogre or help a friend, if a character wants to trip up an ogre to help a friend make a fighting roll against it, for example, she can add +1 or +2 to his roll, but she doesn't actually trip the ogre. It's not made prone, distracted, vulnerable, or shaken as it might have been if she had used a test option. Page 40. The advantage for a player in making a support roll over a test is to help an ally and avoid a more difficult opposed roll for the test, even though narratively it might seem like it should be an opposed roll. Okay, so what is a test then? The support option allows a character to help out allies. Test is the opposite. It allows him to make things more difficult for his foes. Tests include embarrassing an opponent, throwing sand in his eyes, staring down with a steely gaze, or anything else that makes a clever player can think of to rattle his enemy and put him off balance. To perform a test, the player describes the action and works with the GM to determine the most appropriate skill to roll for it. Tests are resisted instinctively, so the attacker's skill is opposed by the attribute it's linked to. So the attacker's skill roll is opposed by the attribute it's linked to. Tripping someone is an athletics roll versus agility, since that's what athletics is linked to. Taunt is linked to smarts, so verbally humiliating someone is resisted by that attribute. Fighting, when used as a test instead of the actual attack, isn't compared to parry, it's opposed to agility. Okay. If the attacker wins the opposed roll, he can choose to make his foe distracted or vulnerable. See page 131. If he wins with a raise, the target is also shaken, and there may be other subjective effects the GM allows, such as a tripped up foe being knocked prone. Hey, W3 Techie. Good to see you this morning. Neutromancer says, I played Weekly Fate for over 6 years. Oh, wow. And it's all about the mindset. I've also run every setting and genre under the sun. I mean, I agree with that. But the trick is, I've also played in some games where I don't think that it worked terribly well with Fate, because it was still trying to be played like basically 5th edition, and it's not that mindset. It's not that mindset. It's got to be something completely different. If you start trying to make Fate rolls like 5th edition or have characters roll for it, it doesn't work. GURPS 4th E for a 82nd Airborne Ninjaman game. See, I don't know what that means, but that's not an 82nd Airborne game. Sounds cool. See, now I would write stuff for GURPS. So that's another one. I've got a video on the channel about how much I wish that GURPS was open. Or, like I said, maybe it's one of those that you could get. I mean, you got to talk to them about it. But I do wish that GURPS had a more open license. They might let me do something for a GURPS book, but they also, I think it would benefit. I think GURPS would benefit a lot from having a more open license. Now, of course, we know as we've been through all the OGL debacle and talking about, well, couldn't you really write something that's compatible with GURPS anyway, and all of that? And I know that that's not the argument right here. I do think that GURPS would benefit by being more open and promoting itself that way, because there's so much great material in GURPS. But the problem is that GURPS, in my opinion, is mainly for the game masters. And it gives you all of these options, but it's mainly for the game master. And the game master basically has to build a setting book. I mean, kind of like Cortex as well, come to think of it. That basically has to build a setting book from the GURPS books and then have use that to run through the players with. And there are only certain people who want to do that. It's certain kinds of game masters. I would, for my setting, but then I need to be able to publish that setting out in a much more GURPS friendly way. Chase says, to me, no generic RPG is good for fantasy, but there's a good chance that it's just because I played D&D for 5 years or so before the first big name generic game came out. Operation Market Garden. Oh, cool. Exactly. GURPS is very easy for players. It's heavy work for the GMs. Yeah. And so that's you could reduce that. See, this is another one that I want to play. We got to get the RPG streaming show going because I really want to go through the boxed set, the GURPS Fantasy box set, and see. I think that helped. That helped a lot. Dungeon Fantasy. That helped a lot by by stripping out all of the. Okay. You got me worried there for a second. Glad it's back. But that box, because that somebody did all of the work. In that case, it was Steve Jackson Games, did all of the work to strip out everything that wasn't necessary for playing Dungeon Fantasy, and then just put Dungeon Fantasy in the box. And it needs more of that. We need to look at Chaosium's basic role playing. Trey recommended that, and because we've been looking at so many different 5e variants, I want to look at basic role playing as well. We've never actually looked at Call of Cthulhu proper. We looked at the Call of Cthulhu boxed set, the starter box, but I never got into the entire Call of Cthulhu books. But because it's not roll a d20, I think we should look at basic role playing here. And I do like percentile based stuff too. Okay, unarmed defender, unstable platform. Wild attack. Withdrawing from melee. Let's see how this is. Whenever a character retreats from melee, all adjacent non-shaken and non-stunned opponents get an immediate free attack. Oh. We've been back and forth on things like attack of opportunities on this stream. It seems like there are advantages and disadvantages to including them. So, example, our druid is surrounded by 3 bandits. She must get to a wounded sorcerer. She takes the defend option, increasing her parry by 4, and backs away from the bandits. All 3 of her opponents get a free attack at +2 for ganging up. Unfortunately, the druid's parry bonus fends them off. Unfortunately, the druid's parry bonus fends them off, and she makes her way to her injured friend. So even though she took a defend option, backing away, they still get to attack. Chase Street says, yeah, I'm using Chaosium's basic role-playing system for a game I'm working on currently. It's definitely very friendly from a creator's perspective. Oh, that's good. So I guess we're going to need to look at it. And it came out with the orc and, yeah, so we should look at it. The system that's in development that I'm most excited for is MCDMs. Oh, yeah, so we need to look at that too. Everything Matt has made has been great, and I don't expect anything less for a full rule set. I have not been following him, but Sable Phoenix is keeping us informed. We'll see about that. When he's got something, remind me, and we'll take a look at it. So the Adventurer Toolkit involves such things as allies, managing extras under the character's control, downtime, a way to determine the benefits of character activity between adventures, dramatic tasks, add tension and drama to situations like crossing a vast chasm, fear, the effects of overwhelming fear, hazards, the effect of scorching heat, bitter cold, poison, and more. Interludes, narrative storytelling for long trips or to reveal bits about the characters' backstories. Mass battles, desperate last stands against incredible odds between armies. Networking, gathering information, the nice way and the not so nice way. The planes, information about planes of existence, quick encounters, the fast and easy way to resolve fights, heists, or capers when pressed for time. Social conflict, running a court trial, pleading for aid, or convince a crowd. And also travel, figure out how long it takes for the party to cross tracts of Galorian. So, allies. Keeping track of ammunition for all of your allies can be difficult. Here's an easy and dramatic way to handle this problem. The ammo level of each group of allied extras starts out at very high, low, or out, as determined by the GM. After each fight, the ammo automatically drops a level. This makes for dramatic situations and realistic logistical problems while eliminating the bookkeeping. Creative combat. Downtime. Adventurers often have downtime between epic quests. Some might spend it practicing their sword fighting techniques or enchanting magic items. When to use these rules? When the party has at least a week between adventures. Carousing, center, earn, enchant, train, research, rest. Dramatic tasks. Dramatic tasks are great for tense actions that must be performed in a hurry or have disastrous effects. Okay, here's an example. Okay, what does that mean? Here's an example. Dragonfire. An evil red dragon roams the countryside, burning farms and villages throughout the land. Sia the paladin and Harsk the ranger watch in horror as the dragon breathes fire down on their favorite tavern. The pair, oh no. The pair rushes to aid the choking and gasping patrons attempting to flee the burning building. The game master decides that rescuing the survivors is a 3-round multi-person dramatic task. There are 10 patrons. Each success saves one from the inferno. On the first round, Sela and Harsk roll athletics to run in the tavern and drag someone out. Both get a raise, so that's 4 citizens saved. The next round, Harsk gets a complication. The GM decides that he becomes trapped in the back rooms and must make a fighting roll -2 must make a fighting roll -2. If he fails, it won't take him too long to escape. If he fails, it will take him too long to escape, and he won't be able to save any more patrons. Harsk draws his brother's trusty battle axe and hacks his way free. He decides to go with it and narrates using his fighting to hack open a hole in the wall for the survivors. He's successful, and Sela gets a raise this turn with persuasion, yelling at the locals to help throw water on the fire. That's 7 total patrons saved. On the third round, Sela gets a complication and fails. She's choking on smoke and can't get help. Fortunately, after spending a few bennies, Harsk manages to get 2 raises and pull the last patrons from the fire. All right. Fear, hazards. Bumps and bruises, climbing, cold, disease, drowning, electricity. Mass battles. Let's take a look at mass battle rules. Rutabaga says that me as well. MCDM, a dark horse to watch is Dungeon Coach's DC 20 game. It feels like it could well be a true 5e advanced. Check out his videos. I don't really think about that one either. Dungeon Coach's DC 20 game. Let me just pull that up in a Dungeon Coach DC 20. Oh, look, I see lots of videos. I'll have to queue those up and watch. Yeah. I'll have to check that out. Okay, so mass battles. Many adventurers feature heroes traveling about the land, gathering allies to thwart some inevitable foe or ravaging horde. They build coalitions, train armies, discover powerful artifacts, and finally stand against the enemy or desperate and glorious battle. The rules presented here allow the game master to handle a small warband holding a fort against an undead horde, a siege against a walled city, or even full divisions of troops fighting across a massive battlefield. The process is abstract, but it provides a narrative base for heroes to plan, get involved, and take part in the carnage. When to use these rules? Use the mass battle rules when you need to resolve a large conflict that can go either way, and also allow the player characters to have it to roll for its outcome. The culmination of this tale is not always a foregone conclusion, and failure can be just as interesting as victory. Each side has a number of force tokens equal to its relative strength and size. Commanders roll their battle skill each turn, and winners reduce their rival foe's force until one side or the other breaks. Who uses rules like this for mass combat? Now, talking about Matt, I've used the mass combat rules I think that's in Strongholds and Followers, We used that in one of Lou's games, but I think that in general at the table we were underwhelmed by that. I think we were underwhelmed by that particular system. We wanted something more out of it. I had to go back and read it and remember what exactly was going on. But I remember being a little bit underwhelmed. GURPS has a rather sophisticated mass combat system for mass combat. So, some people might want to war game the whole battle, but that's kind of a separate thing, right? I mean, that could go to a completely different thing where you're basically war gaming the battle. GURPS doesn't try to do that. GURPS tries to get in and figure out what happened to the PCs. It looks like that's what's going to be happening here too, because there's only 2 pages on massed battle. But I mean, how do you handle that when your PCs are actually in a war? Sable Phoenix says Dungeon Coach is a relative newcomer to RPG, though. He's exclusively 5e. But I honestly worry he's just going to rehash what's already been done in D&D. Everyone is doing their 5e fantasy heartbreaker clone these days. And there are a lot of them, and there are a lot of people. We came to the conclusion that a lot of these are just like your house rules that are put on. And that's why I was thinking, well, if I've got, like, what system do you use? Well, 5e is up. There's so many systems that are built on 5e. If you're like doing a campaign guide, then having one with the 5e rule system in it allows people to adapt it to all these different flowering of different things that are based on 5e. I don't know anything about Earth Dawn either. Okay, so setup. To start, give the larger or more powerful army 10 force tokens. Give the opposing army a proportional number of tokens. If one army has 10,000 warriors, for instance, and the other has 7,000, give the smaller army 7 tokens. This represents the troops, ships, and other assets of each side's army. Adjust the ratio as it makes sense to account for special or elite troops, better equipment, and so on. If one army is half as powerful as the other, for example, give one side 10 force tokens and the other 5. Get close enough to give reasonable approximation of relative strengths. The dice and players' actions will handle the rest. Battle. At the start of each round, the player characters discuss and decide on their plans. Then the attackers make opposed battle rolls. The attackers make an opposed battle roll against the defender. Add the modifiers below as appropriate to each roll. Battle modifiers. So +1 point of advantage. Circumstance, force bonus. The side with the most force tokens adds +1 for each point of difference. If the larger army has 10 tokens and the smaller one has 7, for example, the commander of the most powerful army adds +3. Tactical advantage, +1 to +4. Grant a +1 to +4 bonus for each special circumstance that might help that army, such as fortifications, weather, terrain, or other condition that's not otherwise factored into the army's strength. And then +1 to +4 battle plan. Add +1 to +4 if one side has a particularly effective or clever battle plan over the other. Results. The results of the opposed roll, the winner of the opposed roll consults the battle results. Casualties are generally distributed evenly throughout the army. However, the GM feels is most appropriate for the narrative. Time. The standard battle round is 2 hours of hard fighting. The game master should change this as suits the needs of her story. A more reserved fight might have 4 or even 8-hour rounds, while a siege might be a battle round per day. So battle results include tie. Both sides lose 1 force token. Success, marginal victory. The victor loses 1 force token. The defeated loses 2. Raise, victory. The defeated army loses 2 force tokens. Without you losing anything. Chase says, I think of mass combat and war in RPGs, and my mind always goes back to the AD&D battle system box set. I don't have the box set. I didn't know there was a box set. I got the battle system rules over there, though. That, in turn, reminds me of the Bloodstone AD&D modules. It's a vicious cycle. Neutromaster says, I just make 1 character for each army with relevant name skills. Well, if you're playing Fate, then the whole army can be like a Fate character, right? After an army loses one or more force tokens, its leader makes a spirit check modified by these circumstances. Morale modifiers. Each force token lost so far, -1. The army is made up mostly of undead or other fearless troops, +2. The army is within fortifications or prepared positions, +2. The army cannot retreat or will be killed if it does, +2. Success means the leader cajoles the army to fight on. The battle continues another round. Failure means the commander loses control of his force. The army is defeated but conducts an orderly retreat. Critical failure means they flee the field in a reckless rout. They may be scattered temporarily or permanently, ridden down by the enemy, or captured in the aftermath. The aftermath. When one side routs, retreats, or runs out of force tokens, the battle ends. If it's important to determine the fate of extras or other non-player characters, use the aftermath and extras rules on page 128. However, here we've got characters in mass combat, which is important. So what happens to the characters? Player characters can dramatically affect the results of the battle. Before their commander makes a battle roll, players who want to enter the fray describe what they're doing and make a support roll with whatever skill they feel is most appropriate. Don't forget the enemy champions can add to their rival commander's battle roll as well. Each hero's success grants the commander +1 to his battle roll, but the warrior takes fatigue and from bumps and bruises from the effort. With a raise, the character emerges unharmed and rolls on the battle effects table. The player may choose to use the rolled result or give the commander the usual +2 bonus. So you can go in on success, +1 to battle roll, but you are fatigued. If you get a raise, which is 4 or more, then you're unharmed and you get to roll in battle results. So 2d6. 1, inspire. The warrior fights valiantly, inspiring the troops and urging them to fight on despite their injuries. Her side immediately recovers 1 force token. 3 to 4, terrorize. The fighter's fury terrorizes her foes. The enemy commander subtracts 2 from his spirit roll if forced to test morale this round. 5 to 9 is valor. The warrior's support adds +2 to the commander's battle roll as usual. 10 to 11, slaughter. The foe reels of the champion's onslaught. Subtract 2 from the enemy's battle commander roll this turn. Or 12, an army of 1. Tales will be told and songs will be sung of the warrior's epic feats this day. The enemy loses a force token immediately. This doesn't subtract from the battle roll, but does cause a morale check even if he wins. Failure, however, means the warrior fought bravely. He takes a wound, but doesn't add to the commander's battle roll. A critical failure means the character rolls on the battle effects table, but also suffers d4 +1 wounds. So you could die. It depends on how. I think GURPS had rules for like how hard you want to push it. But probably a lot of players are not going to be okay if their character dies in mass combat in a way they really don't have control over. The game master and player should work together to describe the character's glorious scenes of bravery and carnage once the results are determined. Networking, quick encounters, descriptions of the planes, social conflict, travel. Is there anything in here specifically that anybody wants to be sure that we go over? So powers. Magic is everywhere in Savage Pathfinder, whether it's hidden occult lore practiced by dark cultists, the righteous rituals of clerics, or the portent adventures, spells of sorcerers and wizards. These rules handle it all in a simple system. We call all of these effects powers. They work in the same from game to game, but the particular use, modifiers, and trappings give it the same core powers, endless variations. Characters can gain access to magical powers by taking an arcane background, either magic or miracles, page 40, or one of the more specialized class edges. Arcane skills, starting powers, power points, available powers. Cantrips. And here are our list of powers. Maybe we should take a look at some of the stuff that about how to create a character. So, like, okay, but like, what is one? Let's take a look at what one of the powers is. Let's say, let's come up with a cool one here. Okay, well, here's healing. Okay, so healing, that's important. Healing says rank novice, power points 3, range touch, duration instant, school conjuration, trappings, laying on hands, touching the victim with the holy symbol, prayer. Healing removes wounds less than an hour old. A success removes 1 wound, and a raise removes 2. The power may be cast additional times to remove additional wounds within the hour, as long as the healer has enough power points. For extras, the GM must first determine if the ally is still alive, see Aftermath. If so, a successful arcane roll returns the ally to action. Modifiers, greater healing plus 10. Greater healing can restore any wound, including those that are more than an hour old. So remember, the hour, the golden hour, is really important in this. Crippling injuries plus 15. The power can heal a permanent crippling injury, see incapacitation. This requires an hour of preparation and can only be cast once per permitted injury. If it fails, the caster cannot heal that particular injury, but someone else may try. If successful, the subject is exhausted for 24 hours. Mass healing. Oh, we got 2 different symbols here. We got an orange star and a red square. Mass healing plus 2 plus 3. For plus 2 power points, the healing affects all allies with a medium blast template center on the caster, or a large blast template for plus 3. Neutralize poison or disease plus 1. A successful healing spell negates any poison or disease. If the poison or disease has a bonus or penalty associated with it, the character applies the arcane skill roll as well. Let's see what this is actually saying. So on the following pages, we've got rank. The rank a character must be to learn the power. So we've got things like novice, seasoned, and veteran. And I was thinking about that in terms of Fated Edge, but also Mark Tassin was talking about exactly that on his design vlog the other day. For a cool name. How many ranks of skills do you really need? He was arguing for possibly a small number, so it might be something like this. Power points, the cost to activate the power in power points. We've got a range, trappings, modifiers. Okay, so that didn't tell me exactly what we're looking for. Power modifiers. Activation. A character activates a power by picking a target within range and making an arcane skill roll. Failure means the power doesn't activate. The caster spends 1 power point regardless of any edges such as channeling, unless the ability specifically says it reduces the minimum cost to 0. Success means the power activates and consumes all the power points allocated to it, even if it misses the target. A raise has the additional effect as noted in a particular power description. A critical failure when activating power is called a backlash. It causes a level of fatigue and all currently active powers to instantly terminate. A character must be able to see his target and cannot be bound or silenced. A character recovers 5 power points per hour spent resting. What constitutes rest is up to the GM, but generally it means sitting, eating, tending wounds, sleeping, and avoiding any strenuous activity. Walking or riding a horse isn't usually stressful, but riding in a cushioned isn't usually restful, but riding in a cushioned carriage might be. Shorting. A character might cast a power with fewer power points than required, whether or not she has them, by increasing the difficulty of her arcane skill roll. If there are no skill roll, as with mystic powers, the character cannot short the power. For every power point a character shorts, she suffers a -1 penalty to the roll. Casting a 3-point healing with 0 power points, for example, inflicts casting a 3-point healing with 0 power points, for example, inflicts -3 penalty. Shorting is risky. If a character fails a shortened arcane skill roll, it's considered a critical failure. So okay, this is what we're talking about with power modifiers here. Rutabaga says, in tabletop RPGs, mass combat is simply the dynamic environment around the PCs if they are present. You can drop scenes into it where the PCs are participating in some way. I think that's how a lot of the time this is played. When I've been playing in one that involves mass combat, you're basically playing out some type of scene in the middle of a large battle. And sometimes that works, but other times it doesn't. It may not feel like it's particularly it has a particular impact on the battle. So I think that's part of something the game master would have to do. Don't just come up with a random scene. Just come up with a scene that would actually be influential on the outcome of the battle. If they're not there, if they are not there, then mass combat can cause intrigue ripples that can flavor the game path. So let's see. Power modifiers allow characters to customize their abilities, adding a special effect that better reflects their power's trapping. Power modifiers are selected when a power is activated and may be freely changed each time. An icy bolt might cause armor-piercing damage one attack and then lingering damage in the next. A common modifier listed on the page can be used with any power a character is using. The common modifiers listed on this page can be used with any power a character is using, unless otherwise prevented from modifying the power. Some powers also list additional specific modifiers that can be used with that power. Casters must declare which modifiers they're using before rolling the arcane skill. The number in parentheses is the price of additional power points it costs to add to the effect. A power modifier may only be applied once per casting. Some power modifiers are marked with a gold star. These are epic powers requiring an arcane or divine mastery edges. Okay, so that tells us what that star was. So these are modifiers. So we were looking at modifiers here. So sloth or speed has generally as power points 2, requiring a seasoned person to cast it. And it has additional recipients for +1, area of effect +2 or +3, dash +2, quickness +2, or strong +2. Okay, now over here, so shape change has an epic power modifier of transform of +2 or +3. So we can only access that one if these are epic powers requiring the arcane or divine mastery edges. See the individual class edges. So you have to have some other type of edge, which I guess is like feet or something like that, in order to cast those. So our standard power modifiers then, so each one of these different ones has modifiers for it, but we can always add these. Adaptable caster. The caster can spend 1 additional power point when activating a power to alter its trapping. This can have important consequences if a foe has a particular resistance to the spell's usual trapping or weakness to a new one. And the trapping for healing was something like touching the guy and praying over him. So armor piercing is +1 to +3. The attack is focused to defeat armor or seeks out a foe's exposed areas. Each power point spent grants the power AP2. See page 103. That's probably armor piercing. To a maximum of AP6. Fatigue. Powers that drain or tax an opponent can cause fatigue. The modifier may be attached to any power that causes damage or is resisted by the attack. Well, this could be cool. I'm still trying to get my head around all of this, and especially the powers here. But we've had a lot of discussion on things like freeform magic in the past with different RPGs, and how that does sound pretty cool. But one of the problems with freeform magic is that you have to adjudicate what's possible and what's not in that particular game world with the magic. And because we don't have a real world analog for what magic can do, because we don't have magic, that becomes very difficult to do at the table. Like, we know what strength can do because we encounter strength in the world, like trying to open up a door or something like that. So this could be some type of hybrid kind of approach with it. So we've specified certain types of powers, which kind of reminds me in certain ways like the GURPS powers. The GURPS powers book is a great book. Again, very, dense and very useful for the game masters who are trying to create this. But like here are the different powers and things that can be done in this world. But then also they can be adjusted in a number of different ways, and it's giving you the ability to adjust them kind of on the fly. So this could be a reasonable kind of hybrid system. So glow or shroud. Glow creates a soft light, caster's choice of color, on a small blast template centered on the target. It subtracts 2 from her stealth rolls and negates 1 point of illumination penalties for those attacking the glowing character. Shroud dims and slightly obscures the target so that the attacks against her suffer a -1 penalty, and she adds +1 to stealth rolls. Heavy weapon is +2. The caster creates a focused blast. The attack counts as a heavy weapon. Hinder or hurry. The target is slowed in some way, perhaps due to increased cold, a slippery surface, or even blinding matter or energy. Her base pace is reduced by 2. You can hurry instead, increasing it by 2. Lingering damage. The target is hit by cold, fire, acid, gnawing insects, or some other trapping that continues to cause damage after the initial attack. On the victim's next turn, he suffers the power's base damage -1 die type for an additional turn only. If hit with 2d6 bolt, for example, the victim takes a 2d4 damage at the start of the next turn. If the base damage is already a d4 type, it is d4 -2 instead. Range is doubling its range. And then selective. With intense focus, the caster can choose not to affect any or all individual targets within the power's area of effect. For instance, picking all enemies instead of allies in a blast. We got magic items back here. Let's take a look at combat. Neutromancer says, for my session today, I'm doing freeform magic based on mundane skills. It usually works. Sometimes making a more structured type of system pays off, though. But since it's a one-shot, I need to keep it simple. Let's take a look at armor. We wanted to know how that worked. .103 is gear. Weapons. Okay, so armor piercing right here. So, okay, well, armor. This is the amount of armor provided by the equipment, listed in parentheses besides the wearer's total toughness. This is the amount of armor provided by the equipment, listed in parentheses besides the wearer's total toughness. Unless an attacker states otherwise, hits are always directed at the victim's torso. Worn armor doesn't stack with other worn armor, but does stack with natural armor such as scaly skin at the full value. Armor piercing AP. The weapon or projectile ignores this many points of armor. A weapon with an AP value of 4, for instance, ignores 4 points of armor. Excess AP is lost. Damage is listed in terms of dice, which I do like. Projectile weapons have a fixed damage, such as 2d6. Melee weapons have damage based on the wielder's strength die, plus another die as listed under the individual weapon entries. And I like that. Minimum strength. Parry. The weapon adds a bonus to the character's parry score. The character wields a weapon in each hand. Penalties to parry stack, and bonuses. Penalties to parry stack, but bonuses do not. Range, rate of fire, reach, reload, two-handed. Oh, encumbrance. All right, so how do we deal with encumbrance here? It says most of the time you don't need to worry about how much weight a character is carrying. If it becomes important to track, use the encumbrance levels instead. If the character carries more than the listed weight, he's encumbered. Encumbered characters subtract 2 from pace, running rolls, agility, and all linked skills, and vigor rolls made to resist fatigue. At 3 times the lifted weight or move, he can move a pace of 1 for a number of rounds equal to vigor. So this is, you see, I wish this actually gave you some kind of slot system. I've been enjoying the slot systems, but this is based on pounds. So strength, this is your rating in dice, and can freely carry up to some number of pounds. I like slot systems. Currency, special materials, masterworks, common equipment. So, for instance, armor here. Minimum strength. I wonder, actually, minimum strength in Pathfinder worked a bit differently than I was expecting it to. So minimum strength for armor, shields, and worn gear. Each die type difference between the character's strength and item's minimum strength inflicts a -1 penalty to pace. Okay, so you can wear it. You just have a -1 penalty to pace, agility, and agility-related skill rolls. This is cumulative for those weak but determined adventurers who wear or use items that are too heavy for their build. So you can wear it if you don't have the minimum strength. It's just a penalty for kind of like being encumbered, I guess. Have to remember that. So things like leather or studded leather armor, tunic or jacket, and it tells you where it's defending you: torso, arms, legs. Cap is on the head. Medium, chainmail or scale armor. Shirt, leggings. Oh, okay. Now I got you. So light armor is something like leather or studded leather armor, and it gives you the options for tunics there, leggings, and cap. And then medium armor is either chain or scale armor. And it gives you values for the shirt that will cover the torso and the arms, the leggings to cover the legs, and then a hood or helm on the head, like your coif or your helmet. Heavy is plate. And then extras include armor spikes or locked gauntlets, and then also barding for a horse. So when you're talking about plate, it's talking about your breastplate on torso, vambrace, arms, greaves, legs, heavy helm, head, heavy helm, closed head, -1 to notice rolls. So I guess that does allow you to mix and match. So you can mix and match shields, light, medium, and heavy. Personal weapons. So for instance, dagger or knife. Okay, it can be ranged, so 3, 6, 12, and you roll strength plus D4. The glaive, for instance, is strength plus D8. A club is strength plus D6. A bastard sword is strength plus D8. And if it's used in 2 hands, it causes +1 damage. A great sword is strength plus D10. All right, so now we know. I don't know. Do we need to return this? I think what we should do, I got about 10 more minutes here. I have been going a bit longer on the morning grind. I've been testing out kind of a 90-minute format rather than a 60-minute format, in case you haven't noticed. So I've been going a little bit longer, deliberately kind of testing out this format, seeing if it makes sense to go a little bit longer. So I think I do want to take a look at how to create characters. Why don't we just briefly take a look at how to create characters for about the next 10 minutes or so, and then see... and then maybe we don't need to return to this one for a second day, but that would give it, or third day rather. But this gives us some information on how to create characters. Because I think we said that this was classless last time. So, all right. After concept, rank. Rank reflects a character's competence and experience. They provide a balance between players and grant access to more powerful abilities as one advances. A character begins at novice rank and works up from there. Advances are given out after 1 or more gaming sessions. The GM may be detailed. The GM has more information on page 90. Only player characters use ranks. Game Master controlled characters and creatures don't. We'll tell you more about that later. So after 0 to 3 advances, you are novice. At 4 to 7, you're seasoned. At 8 to 11, you're a veteran. 12 to 15, heroic, and 16 plus, you're legendary. So this is it sounds like kind of like milestone leveling, so to speak. We saw that these ranks were in the back with powers, sort of gating the different powers. So if you want to start with more experienced characters, you can do that. Ancestry. The core book comes with 7 recommended ancestries to use when creating player characters. See page 20 through 24 for details on that. So pick an ancestry. We've got dwarves, elves, gnomes, half-elves, half-orcs, halflings, humans, and humans. So humans, halflings, half-orcs, half-elves, gnomes, elves, and dwarves as potential ancestries for you. Then hindrances are flaws, drawbacks, or dark secrets drawn from a character's backstory. They provide up to 4 additional hindrance points you can use to enhance your character during creation. Taking hindrances not only helps you define and roleplay your hero, but also allows you to increase his attributes or skill points, taking edges, or having additional gold to buy better adventuring gear. A major hindrance is worth 2 hindrance points, and a minor is worth 1. A hero could thus take 2 minor hindrances, 4 minor, 2 major, 4 minor, or any combination that adds up to 4 character points. You can take more hindrances if you want, but the maximum benefit is 4 points. So for 2 hindrance points, you can raise an attribute, 1 die type, or choose an edge. For 1 hindrance skill point, you can gain another skill point, or for 1 hindrance point, you can gain another skill point or start play with an additional 600 gold pieces. Traits are defined by attributes and skills collectively. Characters are defined by attributes and skills collectively called traits. Attributes and skills are ranked by die type. We've seen that, typically from D4 to D12, with D6 being the average for adult humans. Higher is better. So every character starts with a D4 in each of 5 attributes: agility, smarts, spirit, strength, and vigor. You then have 5 character points to raise or to increase your attributes. Raising D4 to D6, for example, costs 1 point. But no attribute may be raised above D12 unless an ancestral ability or edge die says otherwise. Each increase beyond D12 adds a +1 modifier. So you've got 5 different attributes: agility, smarts, attributes, and vigor, all at D4. And then the ability to raise them by 5 points as you like. Okay, skills. Skills are very broad. The shooting skill covers all types of bows and crossbows. Athletic skills covers thrown weapons. 5 skills are marked with a red star in the list that begins on page 33. Athletics, common knowledge, notice, persuasion, and stealth. These are innate abilities that most adult adventurers have. Unless an ancestor ability, edge, or hindrance says otherwise, your character starts with a D4 in each of those 5 core skills. After core skills are assigned, you have 12 additional character points to raise core skills or buy and raise new skills as you see fit. Each die type costs 1 point. But as long as it is equal to or less than the attribute it's linked to. If you exceed the linked attribute, I think Sable Phoenix was talking about this yesterday. If you exceed the linked attribute, the cost becomes 2 points per die type. Skills may not be increased above D12 unless in special circumstances. Edges. Attributes and skills are already basic statistics, but what really makes a character different are the edges. In Pathfinder, every character starts with a class edge for free. The character must qualify for the edge as usual. Characters get additional edges by taking hindrances from racial abilities or advances once play begins. We got gold, fill in a background, and then choose a deity and alignment. So character creation summary is: choose a concept, choose your ancestry, choose up to 4 points of hindrances, attributes, assign your attributes, assign your skills, calculate derived statistics. Standard pace is 6 and may be adjusted by ancestral abilities, edges, or hindrances. Parry is 2 plus half of fighting. Toughness is 2 plus half of vigor. So that's how we get that. Toughness is 2 plus half of vigor. I was wondering how you calculate your toughness. And then you're adding on armor after that. Toughness is 2 plus half of vigor plus armor. Track the amount of armor in parentheses like this. Toughness 11 parentheses 2. This means that 2 points of the total 11 toughness comes from armor. An armor piercing 8, so that's a total of 11, 2 of which is coming from armor. So an armor piercing attack could bypass those 2 points, but not the other 9. All characters get a class edge for free, or a background or professional edge if desired. Use any leftover hindrance points to take edges if you like. Each edge costs 2 hindrance points. Get up to 300 gold pieces worth of equipment, and then fill in your background and alignment. So it looks like for all of these different ancestries, like for instance, elf here, dwarf, gnomes, and half elves. So for instance, half elves Language is common in Elven. Okay, all that height. So they get Elven magic. Elven half elves have an inherent connection with arcane energies. They get a free reroll when rolling to resist enemy powers. Flexibility, half elves start with D6 in any one attribute instead of D4. This does not increase the attribute maximum. Low light vision, half elves amplify light. They ignore penalties for dim and dark illumination. So here are your hindrances. Hindrances are character flaws and little handicaps that occasionally make life tougher for your hero. So we've got major and minor hindrances. Things like arrogant or bloodlust are major. Death wish is minor. Having a death wish doesn't mean an adventurer is suicidal. It just might think about life as a little worth less than some noble but clearly deadly goal. Those with a death wish don't throw their lives away for no reason, but there is a chance to complete. But when there's a chance to complete a goal, if they do anything, they take the risk to achieve it. Having an enemy, habit, hard of hearing, major or minor. Mute, obese, one arm, one eye, overconfident. So this is like the GURPS kind of stuff like that. This is why I think about GURPS a lot in the context of Fate. And this is another reason that I see what they're doing here with Pathfinder for Savage Worlds, what Savage Worlds was doing as well. Because what I would do, because like there's advantages and disadvantages in GURPS, but some of them need to be thematically put together. I think, or could be thematically put together if you were creating a world-specific kind of thing. And then rather dealing with like the fine-grained variation in character points in GURPS, group those things together, and that way you've got like into something like a 5-point or a 10-point advantage or something like that. They're doing that basically with major and minor here, and simplify that side of things, and then make it something that matters. I like that about Fate, because in GURPS, some people, you'll be making a character and like, oh yeah, I'm almost done here. I just got to find another 5 points worth of disadvantages or something like that. And they may not even come up in play, but Fate forces the problems to come up in play. Fate forces that. And I like that. So if it's not really something that's going to matter, don't put it down on the character sheet. Come up with what they're calling hindrances here, or come up with disadvantages or your complication in Fate, and make it something that matters during the game. I'm much more in favor of that. So these are our traits here. And then skills. Okay, so heroes have 12 points to buy skills. Core skills are marked with red stars. That's why athletics, agility is marked with a core. Fighting, agility, faith is spirit, healing, occult. Let's see. Trey says, I bounce between Savage Worlds and Cypher for my universal system choice. Did we look at Cypher? Yeah, we did look at Cypher, right? For my universal system choices, Savage Worlds has more setting books I like, but Cypher is catching up slowly. Best heroes have flaws, and those flaws are usually part of the greater story. Yes. And, one thing that I do like about like Fate with the flaws, so this is also giving you some advantage right away during character creation when you take a hindrance, because you're getting some other points to spend elsewhere on your character. So therefore it automatically matters. But I do like the Fate kind of thing where, okay, you've got this complication and it should come up, but if it doesn't come up, then you didn't already get a benefit from it. You only get a benefit when it comes up, because that's when you're getting Fate points for it and things like that, and you're getting a compel. And I like that, okay, it's on your character sheet, and then when it comes up in the game, you're going to get a benefit right there. Neutromancer says, I like it when the cost rewards for advantages and disadvantages are not front-loaded, but come up. That's exactly what I was just talking about. But come up during play, right? Yeah, because otherwise, a lot of people will just take them and then, or try to come up with ones that don't come up. And you don't really know what's going to come up necessarily. Like when you're talking about, that's my problem with point-based systems in general, is that supposedly you're doing that to be balanced, but you don't really know what's going to come up on any time during the game anyway. So I mean, I guess it's okay for it to be both, but it needs to make sure it's coming up in play. Sable Phoenix says most Sway GMs will give you bennies when you role play into your hindrances. Some of the hindrances have no actual mechanical effect. They're just there to give you something to hook story events off of. Yeah, and that's the kind of thing that I think I would want to codify. Neutromancer says, I feel the same about GURPS versus Fate. In GURPS, the results is trying to mitigate disadvantages or ignore them. Yeah. Just take ones that matter. But also, like, from the point of character creation in a talking about work for the game master, like I said, trying to put these things together would probably be better. Like if you're trying to create into a package, basically, that the player can take. Oh, I really want to be a barbarian of whatever, and then just put all of those things into a package that the player can take. So more skills here. So these are our edges, which are advantages. So on the following pages are dozens of edges for Savage Pathfinder. Edges are grouped by type to help you find them during character creation, and you'll find a handy summary on page 94. Unless an edge says otherwise, it may only be selected once. So below each edge is the minimum rank required to take it, along with other prerequisites such as attributes, skills, and other edges. Okay. There are requirements such as attractive, okay, novice, and you have to have a vigor of at least D6, and then very attractive. To be very attractive, you require novice and attractive. So it's very interesting that we don't have classes here. And well, I say that changing over here. So there's something that's like bard. So I didn't see character classes. But I suppose this is going to be like packs or something like that. Maybe that's what they're doing here. So I guess actually I'm not exactly sure. Anyway, I was saying something. But you kind of build and assemble your character from your flaws and your edges and your skills in a way that does seem to be less time intensive than, say, something like GURPS. So background edges. So arcane background, choose magic or miracles. So that's for your spellcasting powers. Great luck, charismatic, famous, fast healer. Class edges. Every player character in Savage Worlds gets a class edge for free. Okay, that's right. It did talk about class edges. So every player character in Savage Worlds gets a class edge for free, or a background or professional edge if you prefer not to have a class edge. This helps your adventurer capture the feel of the original Pathfinder system's character classes. Class edges are also the foundation for higher rank advanced edges and existing new prestige edges, page 78. Class edges are usually taken at character creation, as most reflect years of training and specializations. You can take them later or multi-class if you like, but work with your GM to explain how your character suddenly acquires such impressive abilities later in her career. You'll find 11 core class edges as well as advanced edges for higher ranks on the following pages. Look at the additional class edges in future books. So each class edge on the following pages includes an example iconic hero. These are named individuals, features in the Pathfinder lore. Okay, so that's what that is. Okay, so this is a build out of Emery, a novice iconic barbarian. So, okay, so this is the barbarian class edge. Gotcha. So you can pick one of these. So requirements are to take the barbarian class edge. Requirements: novice, strength plus D6, or D6 plus, vigor D6 plus. And you get something about armor restriction, fast, rage. But then once you're seasoned, you could take powerful blow. Once you're a veteran, you could take intimidating glare. Once you're heroic, you take strength. I wonder, actually, that's an interesting thing to do. I wonder about adding something like that to Fated Edge, because I was not talking about... I like characters to change. Characters don't necessarily have to advance, but they do have to change. But if you did have some type of like mechanic like we're talking about here, where like how good is your character? Do you really need like 20 levels? And I've actually been rather partial to this thing that we've seen in several different games lately where they just go to 10 levels. They just go level 1 to level 10. But let's see, what are we talking about here? We're talking about having where was our player advancement here? Well, that's 16 plus, but they're saying that we got novice, seasoned, veteran, heroic, and legendary. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you were just going level 0 to 10 and you said, hey, let's group these into like not a time when you're novice, seasoned, veteran, heroic, or legendary, and then go with that, maybe something like that would work. And I always say that I want it to be very easy to create characters of different levels, because you don't always have to start, especially if you're doing a one shot or something like that. Hey, you know, what would stop you from doing a one, or it could be a longer campaign, but I'm just saying for a one shot, especially, what would stop you from saying, hey, let's do Knights of the Round Table. I've got this one shot. Does it make sense to all of a sudden be, you know, novice Knights of the Round Table? No, it doesn't. Let's go ahead and you start. Everybody's a legendary Knight of the Round Table. That should be easy to create. I like creating, I like having the rules for much less powerful characters because I love like level 0 play and stuff like that. But I want you to be able to create higher level characters easily in still an under 15-minute time creating characters. And that way you can just play. Chase says the GURPS Dungeon Fantasy box set gives packages that players can buy with their points depending on if they want to be barbarian, rogue, ranger. Yes, exactly. The packages give you choices of advantages and choices of disadvantages as well. Each class package might give you different options for them. Yes. And that's a huge help. That's a huge help. Jason says, damn, I got sidetracked and missed most of today's morning grind. Well, we're going a little bit long today. But welcome. Glad to see you. Neutromancer says, one of my gripes with leveled games is how final every decision is. I like that Pathfinder editions at least give you the option for retraining. Yes, yeah, we did have retraining in Pathfinder. Novice has 3 advances in that rank. Seasoned through heroic have 4 advances. Legendary shows 4 advances on that sheet, but that's theoretically, is theoretically unlimited. Yeah. And we didn't look at that, but I'm assuming that's kind of like the number of milestones you would need to achieve in order to go up. So it's not yeah, you could play with that, especially if you're just going 5. You don't have to have them all have the same number of advances. Trey says, I like it when characters change with the narrative. I have never been a fan of levels per se. Yesterday, the thief could not do X action, but now they are level 6. They can. Why? That used to be taken care of by having to go and do training, right? So technically, you can keep playing and advancing as long as you want. Jason's talking about DC Coach is making his game very modular, so you can have lots of options to change as you wish. I'll have to check that out. I watch, obviously, a lot of YouTube when I'm sitting here working, so I will see what DC Coach is doing. So, Bard, Cleric, oh, deities and domains. So actually, 1, 2, 3. Oh, so you'll find 11 core class edges as well as advanced edges for higher ranks in the following pages. Look for additional class edges in future books. But actually, I just saw Barbarian, Bard, Cleric, and that's it. You know, you could do something probably similar by using the 3 or 4 classes, like an adept, the warrior, and then the expert or something like that, and then customize it from there. Deities and domains. Oh, here's Druid. Oh, okay. Excuse me. So I guess we had to go into deities and domains because we were on Cleric. Okay. Sorry about that. So then you flip over. Now we're on Druid. So we got Druid, Fighter, Monk, Paladin, Ranger, Rogue. Okay, so you got lots of options. Sorcerer, all your classic options. Sorcerer, Bloodlines, Wizard, Familiars. Oh, and now we're getting into combat edges. These edges are designed to help your hero dish out terrible damage or surviving it in the bloody battles of Savage Worlds. Power edges. These are key to unlocking the true potential of these of your arcane background. They can mean the difference between an apprentice with fewer abilities and a master of magic or divine energies. Professional edges. Professional edges reflect years of practice or experience in a particular trade, activity, or craft. In some cases, they may also represent special blessings from higher powers as well. They may purchase professional edges after character creation, perhaps role-playing the achievement by practicing the affected trade during downtime or between the adventures. Ace, investigator, fix it. Social edges. Of course, on the other hand, this is a lot to look through when you're trying to create a character. Weird edges. These are slightly supernatural in origin. They're usually appropriate for Pathfinder or Savage World games, but check with your GM before taking them. Things like Beast Bond, Beast Master, Champion, Danger Sense, Healer, Scavenger. Legendary edges that you have to be legendary level to get, I guess. Advancement. An advance lets a character make one or more of the adjustments listed below. So advances are granted by the game master at the end of some game sessions, about 4 to 5 hours of play. An advance lets a character make one of the adjustments listed below. Remember that no trait may be raised above the maximum. Okay, so you do get to do something with every advancement, even if you're not going up to another level. So you can increase one attribute, one die type. This option may only be taken one die per rank, only once per rank. Legendary characters may raise an attribute no more than every 4th advance up to ancestral or class maximum. Skills: increase a skill that is equal to or greater than its linked attribute, 1 die, or increase 2 skills that are lower than their linked attributes by 1 die type. You cannot increase the same skill twice. You may gain a new edge. You may buy off a hindrance. How fast characters advance in Savage Worlds Pathfinder depend on the campaign. Okay. Trait summaries over here. Hindrance summaries. Oh, at least we've got that, because I was like, man, this is a lot to look through. So at least we do have summary tables over here. Class edges over here. Combat edges. Prestige edges. And then we get into gear. Okay, I guess we basically cycled around. All right. Been through that book. Let's see what else is going on over here. Jason says, I like the training idea before obtaining a skill. Might implement that. That was like an original AD&D thing where like it costs a certain amount of gold. You got to come back from the dungeon, find a trainer for a certain amount of gold after a certain amount of time, and you can advance. Stargate Mind says, I've made 5e characters creation fully modular, no classes. I have made 5e character creation fully modular, no classes or races, all the same content to craft with. Earth Dawn is a slow change. Your circular level determines what techniques you can advance. When you advance up to a certain point, you can circle up and access new techniques. All right. Well, I have got lots of other things I've got to do today. I have really enjoyed your being here with me. And don't forget that we're going to be live tonight again, 7:30. I got lots to do, and then I got to prepare for that as well. We're going to be talking about John Wick tonight, 7:30 p.m. with Doug Burton. I hope to see you, have you with us. So have a great day, have a productive day, have a creative day, and until tonight,